So, welcome, ladies. This is our monthly Hormone Reset Virtual Clinic. And this month, we're going to talk about all things fasting. And we have a guest with us today, and you know him as Rye, not to be confused with Rye Bread. Actually, you might know him as Ryan Ebling. I call him Rye. But we're going to talk about some fasting, some facts about fasting. What are some different types of fasting? And I have some direct questions specifically for Ryan, but as we're going through, don't hesitate to comment in the chat as far as your questions, and we'll cover your questions. And then we're going to wrap it up today because we got some things happening and going on, and we want to make sure that you are all up to date with that. So, but let me hear you guys. Are you guys ready? Go ahead and comment in the chat. You guys are excited to hear from Ryan this morning? Teresa says she's ready. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Dana's here. Michelle, so excited. Awesome. Morning, Renee. So let's go ahead and let's just jump into the topic of fasting. So first of all, I just want to make sure everyone knows, because people will be watching this recording. We have members coming in, new members coming in all the time. Ryan is not just my husband. He is a certified fitness and nutrition specialist. He's also certified in gut health. I always call him the physique master because he just really does hone in on the best ways to really get the best out of your body. But he's been in the industry for almost as long as I have, almost 30 years, and he lives and he walks the talk. And one of the things that you'll know about Ryan and I is that everything that we recommend, we live as well. And I tell you that because we're talking about fasting. And it's funny, some of the responses that we get sometimes when people ask us about fasting or find out that we fast. And just a funny thing on that, it's like even when people come visit us now, it's like we have to tell them, like, if you're hungry, you need to tell us, because we don't eat first thing in the morning and we kind of forget
Mm-hmm.
that other people don't fast. But let's just go ahead and jump in it. Thanks, Rye, for taking time out this Saturday morning on our monthly live virtual clinic. But let's just jump in. What are some different types of fasting, and what is fasting and intermittent fasting? You got all these different things out there. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different types of fasting. There's different reasons people fast. That's the first and foremost. People have to think why they're doing it, right? You can do it for health reasons. You can do it for metabolic reasons. You can do it for religious reasons, faith-based reasons. But I think there's four main types of fasting. But really, when it comes down to it, there's actually two or three. The first and I think most popular amongst people is intermittent fasting, which is just really time restricted eating. So it's eating within a certain window of time and then fasting the rest of that time. There's prolonged fasting, which is anything over 24 hours, which could be literally anything over 24 hours. I don't know the longest fast recorded, but I think it's somewhere around a year. But
Mhm.
understand that that was with medical guidance. They were still provided nutrients as far as vitamins and minerals. And of course, the person ended up having incredible health results and health markers at the end of that. But that's the longest. But most people that do a prolonged fast is 24, 36 hours, maybe 48 up to 72. Personally, I know I've done 90 or 90 some hours. And there's a lot of benefits to that as well in a prolonged fast. Then there's a liquid fast, which really isn't they call it fasting, but it's not fasting. It's more of a liquid diet, and it's really utilized for gut health and gut motility. That the reason it's not really fasting is because you're actually consuming calories, but they
Mhm.
still point it fasting, even though technically it's not. And the last one is dry fasting, which is the most extreme. And I know that might sound weird because I just said someone did a prolonged fast for a year, and I'm saying dry fast is more extreme. But understand that a dry fast means you're literally not consuming any liquids at all. When I say that, you might say, "Oh, for let's say for 24 hours." It might think you can do that. But I'm talking not even brushing your teeth and going a step further, not even washing your hands, literally avoiding moisture because it gets absorbed through the skin. And there's benefits to that. And if you want, we can talk about that. But those are the four types of fasting in general.
Well, let's talk about what, let's talk a little bit about the benefits. I mean,
Hmm.
we do both. Like you said, we do intermittent fasting. That's our regular lifestyle. But then we also do prolonged fasting. I've only, what I do, like 60 some hours. I think that was
Yep.
my longest. Um,
Hmm.
and everybody's, individuality, but why would someone do a year? I mean, isn't like 72 hours like
Hmm.
the MED?
Yeah. Well, it's not even MED, minimum effective dose, but yeah, the reason the whole year, I don't know the reason why the individual did it to set a record, but I think it was completely under medical supervision. The
Yeah.
person was extremely obese, and got themselves all the way down to optimal actual body fat levels. So most people would never do that, and you have to do anything. Honestly, anything prolonged like that needs to be under medical supervision. But first and foremost, why someone? Let's talk about prolonged fast, right? Why would someone even do that? A lot of reasons. The main reason, actually, of a prolonged fast is not the benefits of the metabolic health, but it's actually the longevity and prolonging of health. Because what it's doing is it's getting rid of damaged cells in your body. And there's something called, I know Lydia, you love this word, autophagosomes is what they're called, and what
Autophagy.
they are exactly. Huh. Autophagosomes to utilize to produce autophagy. So think of it like I think of it like Pac-Man or Miss Pac-Man. What they
Hmm.
are is they're healthy cells going and eating up all the damaged cells in the body, getting rid of them. One of the main reasons also for prolonged fasting is immune boosting. So think of it like, well, of a cell phone, right? Whether you're Android or Apple, doesn't matter. If you do a hard reset, sometimes there's bugs in your phone isn't working right. Well, what do? You completely do a reset, and next thing you know, it's like, wow, reboot, my phone was working perfectly again. In a sense, that's what prolonged fasting can do for your body. It's a reset to get rid of the slough, to get rid of the dead cells in your body, and to almost reset your immune system.
Hmm.
And it's powerful. And a lot of people think too, well, that's crazy because I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to have no energy. Yeah, if you're not used to fasting, I don't, at least intermittent. I don't recommend jumping into a prolong. Do
Right.
an intermittent first and get used to it. But what's amazing is the energy level actually is opposite. Energy skyrockets because remember, food is a source of energy, but it's not the source. It is a source. So a lot of people think, well, if I don't eat, I'm going to be tired. Once your blood sugar is regulated, your body has plenty of fat cells for fuel.
Hmm.
Plenty. Every one of us have plenty. And the clarity, the focus, the energy goes through the roof on a prolonged fast. So again, the main benefits of a prolonged fast is going to be because of longevity and
Hmm.
immune boosting. Um, then talking about probably the most important one or the most popular one would be intermittent fasting. And again, everyone thinks of, 16-8, 16-8. I believe there's no actual, so to speak, science between, I shouldn't say science. Why is it 16-8? A lot of people, well, that's what all the studies were. Well, it was because it had to do with the scientist that was doing the studies. It worked around her time frame to be able to do 16-8. That's the only reason with mice and what she was doing. That's the only reason 16-8 became so prevalent was the
Right.
study was done on that time frame. But we also know that you can get great benefits by doing 14 hours,
Hmm.
14-10, right? And sometimes we know with women, Lydia, you can talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
With women, especially in hormones, as we get older, as we start to mature in our age, you might not be able to go as long or want to go as long. And then there's other
Well,
times there's benefits for 18 hours or 20 hours or 22 hours. And
right.
those benefits, just so you know, and I'll let you talk about that, Lyd, is the benefits mainly when it comes to intermittent fasting is body recomposition,
Hmm.
is for your metabolism,
Yeah,
which is why most people do it.
it's a fantastic tool. And a couple of things, like we said, when it comes to women, women are definitely different when it comes to the benefits and then how they go about it because of our hormonal cycle. And even like I said, as we go through menopause and perfect example, had a consult with one of our VIPs the other day, and in the beginning, she like did not want to do fasting at all. She's like, I'm gonna die. And then we
Mhm.
got her to do prolonged fasting. And the reason that we were doing prolonged fasting for her on a series, because she had some specific health challenges that we were focusing on, and we were trying to flush certain cells out of her body. Well,
Mhm.
now she's got clearance from her physician. She has clean bill of health, and she still was operating the same way. And I was like, no, I said, your nutrition is always important. I said, but let's cut down your fasting hours, because she was having issues getting her protein in because she wasn't hungry enough to eat all her calories. So just thinking about that too, like when you say 16:8, what's more important? Is it more important that I don't eat, like and get the 16 hours in, or cut down my 16 hours to make sure I get my nutrition in?
Say that one more time so that everyone can hear the question exactly the way you worded it.
Yeah. So what's more important? Like, for
Hmm.
example, the client that we just had, we shortened her fasting hours so she could get her protein in, because she wasn't getting her calories in that she needed.
Yep.
So when what's more important? Is it more important that I fast for 16 hours or 18 hours, or get my nutrition in?
Great. And I wanted you to say that again, because I want people to really think about that. You absolutely need to get your nutrition in, right? Your vehicle can't run without fuel.
Mhm.
So your body needs the fuel. What'll happen is sometimes when you start intermittent fasting in the beginning, because you're going from normally eating, let's say 12 hours a day, 3, 4, 5 hours spaced out, to cutting it down to a shorter window, but you're consuming the same amount of calories, so to speak, if your calories are on point. So it may take a minute for your body to adjust to that.
Mhm.
But absolutely getting in your caloric needs again, and we'll say minimum effective dose for calories. And without getting off topic, protein, protein, protein. Protein is the first thing, then fats and carbohydrates make up the
Mhm.
rest, but you must get the protein amount in.
And let's dive into that a little bit more. Well, number one on the protein, but let's talk about, I'm trying to lose weight and I'm trying to
Mhm.
drop my insulin. Is that going to happen if I'm not doing 16 or 18 hours? What if I only do 10 hours or 12 hours of fasting?
So first thing I want to say is most people are fasting longer than they believe they are anyways.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say they stop eating. What's the average time someone probably stops eating at night? I'm going to say between 6 and 8 at night, typically.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think most people eat again, even if they're up early to go to work, until at least 6 to 8 the next morning. So they're already fasting 12 hours.
Mm-hmm.
It's just you're sleeping through most of it. So it's not difficult for you, right? You're not
Right.
getting hunger pains, and hopefully you're not waking up hangry in the middle of the night, right? Ravaging with
Mm-hmm.
hunger. So at the end of the day, it's not that hard to increase it a little bit further, your or expand upon the time frame in which that you do fast. Um, so hit me with the question again. I'm sorry.
What's more important, the nutrition? Or no, sorry. Like, so I'm trying to lose weight and I'm
Oh,
trying to
okay. Your
drop my
insulin.
insulin.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, how many hours should I be fasting?
Yeah. So, and again, it depends on the individual, but the reality is, so the way it will work is every time you eat, right, your insulin goes up.
Hmm.
And the whole key is to keep that insulin regulated, to keep the insulin down. It's going to peak when you eat, you want it to, because you want to actually take the food and move it to the cells in which it needs to in the sugar. The problem is if you're constantly eating and you're not giving that time frame, you're not letting the insulin come back down. So you're
Hmm.
constantly staying peaked. And by the way, when you wake up in the morning, the reason that we now there's by the way, there are two ways to fast. Well, multiple, but in intermittent, you can do early time restricted feeding or later in the day. So you can literally eat first in the morning and stop in the early afternoon and go the rest of the day without food.
Right.
So that might work better for your schedule. There's no perfect, in other words, what I'm trying to say is there's no perfect time in the day in which you should fast and when you should eat, but there is a time frame in which you should not eat, and that's whatever you choose. So
Hmm.
let's say you do 16 hours or 14 hours or 18 hours, whatever the time frame is, whatever you do, understand that fit it in wherever you can fit it in based on your lifestyle and your current schedule.
Right.
But think about in the morning time when you first wake up, your cortisol is highest. Why? Because that's what actually wakes you up in the morning, gets you going. And
Mm-hmm.
your energy levels actually heightened because of,
Mm-hmm.
right, hunter-gatherer day. You had to go out and find your food. You didn't have a refrigerator. So when you get up, your cortisol is up. And then
Mm-hmm.
as the morning goes on, your cortisol starts to go down. That's why we also recommend don't have coffee immediately, because your cortisol is already high. Your energy is high. Your coffee is just going to spike you up even more. So let it
Mm-hmm.
start to drop before you have your first cup of coffee. But really let it start to drop before you eat. Because if your cortisol is high, your insulin is high, you're primed at that point for storing body fat.
Specifically around your midsection that
Correct.
most women struggle with even before menopause, and it gets even harder going
Yes.
through and after menopause, which that's a great leadway. A couple different things, ladies, just so you know, and like I said, women are different, and how we fast is going to be specific to one, like Rye says, like what's going to work for you. Like one of the things he mentioned, time restricted or early time restricted eating, right? Why would someone want to do that? Well, number one, right, is like helps your digestive system because now it's resting even before you go to bed. And for someone that might have slow gastric emptying, right, then that's also prime for them because they're still up. It might be harder. Can you explain or add, talk a little bit on that, Rise, as far as the early time restricted eating and like slow gastric emptying, why it might be good for someone with digestive issues?
Yeah, at the end of the day, very simple to think about it. When you eat, let's say you eat early in the morning, you stop. Let's say you start eating at 8 in the morning or whatever, and you stopped by like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and then you eat the rest of the day. The thing is, that food is going to stay in your system longer, and it's going to keep you satiated and full for a longer period of time because it's literally sitting in your stomach, hence
Mm-hmm.
slow gastric emptying time. And you're not going to bed with a load of it sitting in your stomach that's going to disrupt your hormones and disrupt your sleep patterns.
Mm-hmm.
So you can experience or experiment with that. I've done both. Lydia and I have both tried both ways of doing it, and I think for us it's just easier to eat later in the day than it is eat first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
At least for me, it's because if I eat early, my body's so primed to not eat early anymore. And by the way, I was the individual who woke up, ate immediately. If I was
Mm-hmm.
traveling, brought food with me no matter what, even if I was taking a drive down the road for an hour. I mean, I always had food. I ate small meals very frequently. They were very healthy and they would regulate my blood sugar. But the problem was I was constantly peaking my insulin levels.
Mm-hmm.
Because regardless, and again, keep in mind, it doesn't matter if it's a protein, a carbohydrate, or a fat, it's going to elicit an insulin response. Now, they do elicit different amounts of response. So, carbohydrate, a simple carbohydrate is going to insulin or create a higher spike, but protein also creates a pretty high spike. And even
Mm-hmm.
though a lot of people say, oh, but I can do, remember the bulletproof coffee, I can do that. It doesn't. No, it makes you fast because of the calories, and it still creates and elicits a response of the insulin, but it might
Mm-hmm.
not be a high peak, but it is
Mm-hmm.
still creating an insulin response. So for me, I know in Lydia, for us, it's easier, I think, to just fast throughout the first half of the day than eat later. But I also do know that if I eat, depending on what the food is, and this is bio individual, based on the individual, if I eat something heavy just before bed, it most likely will disrupt my sleep. But
Mm-hmm.
it depends on what the food is and how much of it. So when I said what the food is, I mean what I mean by that is it a lot of fats or a lot of carbs,
Right.
right? Usually
Mm-hmm.
this is a solid protein isn't going to affect me.
Yeah. And you know, you talked about us eating later today. One of the things that
Hmm.
I've noticed, because we've been fasting for what, almost what, 7, 8 years
Many
now,
years. Yeah.
um, that for me personally, it's like I want to get all my work done before I
Mm,
sit down and have my first meal because my focus is so on point versus when I eat and it doesn't matter, well, it doesn't kind of matter the amount of carbohydrates I eat in that first meal. But even if I do a little bit of starchy carbohydrates, it's not that I'm like lethargic and can't move and bloated and all things like that. It's just like I get to a point of like once I eat, like my brain doesn't work the same, like my
hmm
focus is not completely there. And I might be kind of tired sometimes, you know? So I want you to start paying attention to that, ladies, you know, like when you're eating, like you're fasting, noticing the difference. So my whole thing is like, I need to be on point today. So I'm not eating until X time because I'm going to get all my work done. And then once I eat, then I'm like, I don't worry about stuff of like what I have to get done. That's kind of how I roll. Go ahead. You have some of them?
No, I was just going to say it's so crazy because we think about how they've done these studies years ago, but they never really put two and two together, and how after lunch, how work production in the workforce just
Mm-hmm.
goes down, and in the morning
Mm-hmm.
it peaks. And it's because why? It's because regardless of what the individuals were eating, their work production went down because their not just their energy went down, but their
Mm-hmm.
mental focus went down
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
created a lot of brain fog. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're eating clean protein and whatnot, it doesn't matter. Your body goes into, you know, rest and digest mode.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, it's rest and digest. Hence, you are going to slow down.
Right. Right. You know, and that leads us to one of the things we've been talking about, like the insulin response. I'm going to bring up those
Mhm.
slides. There's a couple slides I want to share with the ladies because Tracy says there. So the old idea of 6 small meals is a myth for what you are saying. So that's perfect because people always
Yeah.
ask too, once they start fasting, well, how many meals should I be eating throughout the day? How many meals do you eat? So let
Yeah.
me bring up these slides real quick. I wanna,
So when you're bringing that up, let me speak on that for a
yeah.
moment. You know, a lot of times when we think about those small meals, correct, Tracy, that it's not the proper way of doing it. But you'll see people in the elite fitness industry do it. But you have to understand they're at a different level because they're training at a different level. They're doing everything they can to reduce fat and to maintain and build as much muscle as possible. 99.9% of people on earth don't would never ever want to perform at the level they are. And the reason I say that is because they don't want to train at the level they're training at and put
Mm-hmm.
themselves through that. I've done it. It's not fun, but yes, that's a little bit different because now we're talking where your body fat is absolutely minor, as low as it can go. So it's a totally different. It's like the difference between driving in a big truck and driving a motorcycle down the road. They're both vehicles, but they're two completely different things. And the elements around you are going to distract, be different, whether
Mm-hmm.
if you're on a motorcycle or in a vehicle, in a like a truck. So they're not really comparable. So yeah, the reason we don't want to do that is here's an example right here. So what happens is every time you eat, it's going to cause an insulin response, right? Your blood sugar is going to go up as well. So when you eat food, you increase your insulin. What's that going to do? You're going to store sugar in the liver first, and then muscles. And then when it's not, and by the way, it only holds so much. And
Mm-hmm.
then where is it going to go? It's going to spill over into fat cells. By the way, our body doesn't have a limited amount of fat cells. They'll keep producing. They
Mm-hmm.
don't care. They'll just keep multiplying. And they multiply when they get too big. They'll get so big and then boom, they'll create new ones. So they will continue to multiply. So what happens is, let's say in this example, you ate at 7 in the morning, you spike your blood sugar. Your insulin goes along with it, which is good. You want the two to be parallel. But what happens is you want them to be parallel and you want the insulin to take the blood sugar and utilize it and flush it into the cells for fuel. Well, here's the problem. As it starts to come back down, let's say up a couple hours later, a few hours later, you eat again. Well, you didn't give it time to come back down to baseline, so you spiked it again. But because baseline is now higher, you spiked it the same amount, but it's now higher than the first time. Now, as you can see in this graph, it continues throughout the day every time you eat a meal because you never let it come back down to baseline. When you eat small meals or large meals, whatever size throughout the day. Understand every time you eat, you create that response. So a lot of people might think, well, what if I just do little snacks, like little things? It doesn't matter. You're still creating an insulin response,
Mm-hmm.
which again, when the insulin is up, it's not this simple. Everything works at a molecular level, but think about it this simplicity, simply. Think of a switch. When you eat, you shut the switch off. And what you're shutting off is the ability to burn fat. When you don't eat, after you eat, eventually that switch turns back on. and you go back in the fat burning mode, because the point of eating food is to provide you energy. But most of us eat more than we need. So it gets stored as fat cells, which is a survival mechanism of the human body. So we will then have stores if we come into a famine time in our life, to where we can still survive. Because remember, you can live without food for a long period of time. You
Hmm.
cannot live without water. You cannot. And your body will actually produce water. That's what a dry fast does. It takes the triglycerides out of from the fat, which are made up of hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon. And when you breathe oxygen, it combines with the hydrogen, because what's water made out of? H2O, hydrogen and oxygen. So your body will actually make molecular water to survive when you do a dry fast. And that's why it's so powerful. It's why the human body is, I mean, it's a miracle machine, right? But you can
Hmm.
only do that for a certain period of time,
Hmm.
where you can not eat for a long period of time. So again, in this graph, what you're showing is constant high blood sugar along with insulin levels peak the whole time. Now go to the next, I think there's the next slide, Lid.
Yep.
So now here's the difference of eating. Again, this is just showing 2 meals. Even if it's 3, it's still going to be way better. But what you're doing here is you now shrunk your window down to a shorter time frame of eating, to 16 to 18 hours of fasting and 6 to 8 hours of eating. So now you're not eating until about noon. You have your meal, whatever that is. You peak your insulin levels and your blood sugar goes up, and then it starts to come back down. But you're not eating again for, well, 6 hours. So
Hmm.
you're allowing it to come all the way back down. Now, when it's down, it stays down for a while, and then you eat again, it peaks back up, and then it drops back down again. But if you look at across the board, an average of where your insulin levels and your blood sugar levels would be here compared to the other one, well, the other one's going to be up here. So it's constantly rising. And in this model, it's going to be down here, right? That is where you're going to keep healthy blood sugar levels, healthy insulin levels, by spacing out the meals. So you're better off with 2 or 3 larger meals
Hmm.
than you are with a bunch of little meals, because we want to be able to bring that blood sugar and bring that insulin back down. And regardless of the type of food you eat, it's going to cause a response. It's going to spike it.
Right. So thinking of that too, because people are often, they'll ask us, and I'll go ahead and take this off here, but they'll ask us how many meals that we eat. And it's not
Mm-hmm.
like we don't even really try to think about 1 meal, 2 meal. We think of it in the sense of, okay, hungry, time to eat, what are my nutrients? We
Yep.
always just say, okay, need to eat something. I'm looking at my nutrients and what do I need to get in, and that determines like kind of the size of our meals as well. And I know for some women in the beginning, even for me, like, or both of us, we were talking about this yesterday when we first started fasting, because your stomach naturally shrinks, right? And so in the beginning, when you start eating, when you're first fasting and then eating, it's kind of hard to get all your calories in because your stomach is kind of like smaller. So you're not as
Mm-hmm.
hungry, so there's a shift in working up to getting all your calories in. Hopefully that makes sense to you, ladies. Um, and then I want to add too, I don't want to forget, when I talk about women and fasting is different, it's different in the sense, number one, because some weeks can be easier than others because of our hormones. And even when we're through menopause, our body still goes through a cycle. Okay. And we actually, with our signature program, Master Blueprint, I did a session on your fasting schedule in the sense of your hormones or your cycle, because when you're at a certain phase of the month, it's going to be easier. Like I can fast all day long, right? And then there's, when your body starts to go through the hormonal decline of that time of the month where estrogen is going to be lower and progesterone is going to be lower, it's actually harder to fast longer.
Mm-hmm.
Not spending a lot of time on that. The next thing with women is, ladies, is that especially if you're a VIP, we have those hormone protocol recipes, because if you have a thyroid issue, you're going to fast differently. If you are insulin um, or carb intolerant, you have a different fasting schedule, because trying to get that insulin down, you're going to do things, you're going to fast longer, and then you're going to do prolonged fast. And I know Renee had a question on prolonged fast. if you are trying to reduce inflammation, if there's a specific, so there's different strategies in time frames. Like you might be a person to where you do the early time restricted eating, or you might be an individual where you're only fasting 5 days a week versus 7 days a week, or your hours might only be 14:10 versus 16:8, things like that. And it's all really based on your hormone profile and your carb tolerance. And I should have named it intolerance typing. How long is a actual prolonged fast, Rye? What is considered a prolonged fast?
Mhm.
Renee's asking.
Anything over 24 hours, basically from 24 hours or beyond. Um, so it's literally skipping a day of eating, and it could be
Mhm.
skipping multiple days. And different things happen as we, the longer you go. But there is something called like a certain threshold where you get the most bang for your buck in a
Mhm.
prolonged fast. And then again, I would never recommend someone do a prolonged fast without first just getting used to increasing their time on an intermittent fasting, which is very simple. You just add 15 or 30 minutes every day. To your time in which you eat or fast. But
Mhm.
understand that prime really is around that 48 hours. Um, so it's basically 2 days, because after 36 hours, your body, or really it's 24 hours, you'll start to show that there's an increase in those, again, funny word, autophagosomes, which what they are, they're Pac-Man, Miss
Mhm.
Pac-Man. They're eating up all the damaged cells in your body. But at the 36-hour mark, there's a 300% increase in autophagy, which is
Mhm.
the killing off of dead cells or damaged cells. And then after 48 hours, there's about a 30% increase on top of that. So you're looking at about a 330% increase is what science shows after about 48 hours. And then really at the 72-hour mark is where autophagy is at its peak. After that, it's not as much beneficial at that point. It might be more into, immune response and building your immunity. But I think
Mhm.
that 72-hour mark is pretty much a sweet spot. And usually at that point, you're like, all right, I want to eat. But it's funny because you don't want to eat because you're hungry. You're just kind of like, I feel like something's missing in my life, because after about 72 hours, you literally don't have hunger pains anymore. It's absolutely gone because
Mhm.
you're using the ketones. Your body is in ketosis. Your body's absolutely using fat for fuel, which also then plays on your psyche, because you're like, but do I want to eat? Because I love the fact that I'm using fat for fuel. And one of the things you do have to do, I want to be, caveat and put this out there, you absolutely need to make sure you are staying very hydrated, and you're
Mhm.
staying, increasing your mineral intake, whether you're
Mhm.
using a Celtic salt, a Himalayan salt, some type of you need electrolytes, you need minerals, because your body will deplete minerals very, very fast. So you need magnesium, you need potassium, you need calcium, you need sodium,
Mhm.
especially when you do anything over 24 hours. Absolutely. Or your brain will start to not function at all.
Yeah. So, well, that leads me to two different questions. But then also Renee is asking, how often should you do a prolonged
Mm-hmm.
fast?
Great question. That depends on the individual. If
Hormones.
you hormones play a role, absolutely, male, female. If you are intermittent fasting consistently, like daily, like we do, or 5 days on, 2 days off, then not nearly as much, because your body is already going through a period of famine without food.
Mhm.
If you're someone who says, you know what, I don't want to do as much intermittent fasting, I'd rather just do a prolong, you can do it as much as once a week.
Mhm.
Um, One thing that Lydia and I have done, and it's, man, again, understand that fasting is simply a tool. That's all it is. But it is a miraculous tool. And
Mhm.
let's say the holidays, or you're going to go away on a vacation, you're going to go on a trip somewhere. Well, if you're going, look, let's be honest, if you're going on a all-inclusive resort in Mexico, or you're going to Hawaii, or you're going to, I don't care if you're going to Disney World, wherever you go, and there's food, and you want to have a great time with your significant other, with your friends, with your family, enjoy yourself, have
Mhm.
fun, make smart choices, don't feel crappy, because you know you will when you eat bad food, but enjoy yourself. And let's say you ate extra calories, well, you're going to on a vacation, right? Not a problem, because when you come home, you say, I'll just do a prolonged fast. You can literally offset the amount of calories that you overconsumed in a very short amount of time. And I won't get into
Mhm.
the math on it right now, but understand that if you overate, let's say a couple thousand calories in that long weekend, well, if
Mhm.
you missed one day eating, you just basically burned off a couple thousand calories in one prolonged day. It
Yeah.
really literally resets. It's like coming home and saying, okay, well, I'm out of gas. I'll just fill my tank back up at the gas station. I'm ready to go again. It's phenomenal how well it actually, it works
Oh
like
yeah,
that.
totally. Reducing that inflammation like and over certain hours, and we're not going to get into all that because remember, also ladies, in your members area, every month courses are released. So this is a content that as far as you're having a guide in there that talks about the basics of fasting. So make sure that you're logging in because that's where this recording will be as well, right? The logging in, watching the modules that are released each month for the topic of the month, and then also like you'll get the fasting guide and showing you the basics. With the two questions though that come about when we talk about like fasting and prolonged fasting. Oh, what I was going to say before that is that, the different hours, we're not going to go through all the things,
Yeah.
but like 36 hours actually resets your microbiome.
Hmm.
So just depending on what you're looking to achieve, because it's a weight loss tool, it's a health tool, it's a brain tool. Fasting is just powerful, like you said. Also, like I can't remember the hour. There's a specific hour that actually helps you reset your serotonin. So combine that with some cold plunge, your brain will be on point.
Oh,
Um,
your dopamine will go through the roof.
right, right. So the two
Yeah.
questions though, people are asking, would ask, or made me think, like, what can I have during the fast, and then what should I break my fast with?
Yeah. So during the fast, as much water as possible. Absolutely as much water as possible. In your water, you can put lemon, lime. You can put that, but no other fruit because it will break it. You can do black coffee. Don't put anything in your coffee because it will break your fast.
Hmm.
And by the way, coffee is a great tool to stunt your appetite, to blunt your appetite, I should say. And then you can also do tea as long as it's not infused with fruit. All right, so you can do like a regular herbal tea, black tea, things that green tea is great for
Hmm.
you. Another thing that we found very, very helpful, especially in the beginning when we were getting our bodies used to fasting, was soda water or just carbonated water with some
Hmm.
fresh lime or lemon in it, because that carbonation, the gases, if you will, create a sense of satiety and fullness in your stomach. Um, so it's easier to then not worry about eating because you feel like you actually have something in your system. So
Hmm.
that's a powerful thing. As far as breaking your fast, when it really matters most is when you do a prolonged fast because your cells are very, very receptive, if you will, and ready to suck in anything that you give it. But also, like Lydia said, even though it resets your microbiome and helps with your stomach and the serotonin in your gut, one of the things you have to be careful of is you have to understand that it also creates some sloughing off and some getting rid of things on the inside lining of your gut. So your gut's going to be more sensitive as well for digestion. So what I always recommend breaking it a fast with is bone broth,
Yeah.
because the gelatin that's in
Hmm.
it, it's going to help heal your gut lining in a sense, is what it's actually going to do. So drink some gelatin, or just drink some gelatin, drink some bone broth. You can also do apple cider vinegar throughout, which won't break your fast, which you can also do throughout your fast as well. But definitely break it with bone broth. And then the first thing I recommend eating after, definitely, by the way, usually you'll never hear us say don't eat vegetables. Don't eat vegetables as your first meal, especially cruciferous ones. It may really cause havoc on your
On a
gastric system.
prolonged, that's a prolonged
On
fast.
a prolonged
Mhm.
fast, you break it
Mhm.
with, my recommendation is very lean, clean, small piece of protein. Wait a little bit, see how your body feels, and then go amongst other things to consume. But be smart with it. Don't just break it with, something that you normally wouldn't eat anyways. And
Mhm.
stay away from high fibrous foods when you first break your fast on a prolonged fast.
Yeah. There's, yeah. Um, how, and you might have said this, I had a little bit of a brain gap there. I apologize. How long before, so I break my fast with the
Hmm.
bone broth. How
Hmm.
long should I wait before I actually eat my meal?
No real time frame. I would give it at least 30 minutes or so, just to let that bone broth go in and do what it needs to do to your gut lining. And remember, your
Mhm.
food, when you eat food, it stays in your system for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours. But a liquid like that's going to go through and do some healing pretty quick.
Mm.
I wouldn't just like don't take it, drink it, and then eat your food right away. Sip it down and give it some time.
Enjoy
Give it at
it.
least at least 30 to 45 minutes. Yeah, and another thing that really makes bone broth taste great: heat it up, warm it up. It's
Hmm.
almost like a broth soup at that point. And another thing you're going to notice is your palate will change.
Yeah.
The food will taste so much better. The fruit and vegetables will have so much more distinct sweet flavor,
Mm.
um, compared to, and it, like especially like a red pepper or something that has already it's a sweet pepper.
Hmm.
You'll a red or yellow or an orange pepper, not a green pepper. You'll notice that when you do later have that, don't break it with that. You'll notice how much more you actually crave the good food because of how good it tastes, because you're literally cleansing your palate as well.
Yeah. And what's funny too, the last time we did a prolonged fast and I boiled and shredded chicken
Mm.
breast. So I did the bone broth and everything. And it was so funny because then I sat down and put a little bit of salt and pepper on the bone shredded chicken. I'm like, this is the best chicken ever.
No, you're right. It literally enhances flavor. It's look, if you've never done one, try one, but do some intermittent fasting first. You're 100% correct. It does.
Mm,
And I see a couple of questions here I want to answer. Renee,
yeah.
can I use Celtic salt instead of? Yeah, Celtic salt instead of pink Himalayan. Actually, Celtic salt has more mineral content. So yeah, absolutely, for sure. During a prolonged fast, and absolutely organic bone broth. Yes.
Yeah. And just so you know, like speaking, like, yes, I have coffee here, but I will even add Celtic salt, like a
Mm,
sprinkle to our actual coffee when we're drinking it. It actually helps break down the acidity
hmm
of the coffee as well. So if you ever get a coffee that's really bad, add a little Celtic salt to it and it'll actually improve the taste of it.
I also recommend every morning when you wake up, obviously, this, right? Before
Hmm.
you have coffee, make sure you have a big, big glass of water. Your body is dehydrated when you wake up in the morning because you're fasting throughout the night. But
Hmm.
it's not just water, your body's utilizing minerals at all times. Your cells require them. So take some of that Celtic salt, a pinch of it. It shouldn't taste like gargling salt water, but a pinch of it, or even the Himalayan pink salt's fine. Put it in your water. It'll
Hmm.
actually make the water more crisp, and drink that.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like before you have anything, just
Yeah.
do that and
And
hydrate your
I'll put
body.
it in my apple cider vinegar
Yep.
and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do a big glass of water, apple cider vinegar, some Celtic salt, and I put some lemon juice in there too, because it helps to ease the taste of that apple cider vinegar. And
Yeah.
by the way, apple cider, if you heat that, makes it smoother and easier to drink too. So people that struggle with apple cider vinegar, I know people that just take shots of it. That's no. I prefer to enjoy it a little bit better with my diluted with water. But if you actually heat it and you drink it, it actually creates. It's almost more soothing,
Hmm.
especially with some fresh lemon in it.
Yeah, it's like a tea as well.
Mhm.
Excuse
Yeah,
me, when you do that, when you heat it up.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
this is
Lyd,
all.
if there's time, I want to mention real quick one more
Yeah,
thing,
go
because
ahead.
some people, I want to just, because I know some people are going to be thinking this now or thinking about it later, which is, but if I fast, am I going to lose muscle?
Mm,
And because the whole thing is, ladies, I want you to remember the main thing you can focus on is muscle retention and muscle building. That in turn will create fat burning if everything else is in line with your calories and your macros. But again, I keep harping, and Lydia harps, focus on muscle building more than fat loss, because it will happen when you focus. And also, more muscle means more longevity, longer
mm,
lifespan. So real quick, there was a study done, an 8-week study with 34 resistance trained people. And what I mean by that is they were used to strength training. Okay. Now they had the same amount of muscle, same amount of body fat, and they ate the same amount of food. So it was consistent across the board in the study. Group one did intermittent fasting. So what they did is they had them eat 3 meals, not two, three, at 1 o'clock, one at 4 o'clock, one at 8 o'clock. Okay, so they ate about a 16-8 window time frame, between a 16-8 and an 18-6 time frame. And the other group ate a standard normal meal time, 8 a.m., morning, breakfast, lunch, dinner, 8 a.m., one for lunch, 8 at night. Okay, so they basically ate in a 12-hour time frame. The only thing that was different amongst this group, by the way, exact same training protocol, exact same meal plan, as far as quantity of food and quality
mm,
of food. The difference was what? The difference was 4 hours in which they were eating it, a 4 to 6 hour window in which they were or were not eating. That was the only parameter that was different. Here's
mm,
what happened in the fasted group. After 8 weeks, there was a 16% reduction in fat mass, and they had a 0.86 pound increase in muscle. Remember, when you don't eat, After about the 12-hour mark, which is basically you're sleeping when you're, for most of that, your growth hormone kicks in, which is going to
Hmm.
preserve your muscle. And the longer you fast, the more growth hormone is produced. So you actually will preserve muscle. It's not using muscle for fuel. Your body gets forced, and I want to say that again, your body is forced to use fat for fuel.
Right.
It has no other option, ladies. That is incredible. Now, what happened with the non-fasting group, they had a 2.8 reduction in fat mass instead of a 16, a 2.8. But they also had a 0.64% increase in muscle mass. So by eating in a shorter window, not only did you burn more fat, you increased your muscle. Because why? It allowed your body to produce naturally more growth hormone. Everything else was identical across the board. So it works in reverse of the way our brain thinks. We think, well, we need the food for the
Right.
fuel to go strength train. But actually, if you reduce the time, not reduce your caloric intake, big difference. Fasting is not meant to reduce your caloric intake.
Right.
Fasting is meant to reduce the time frame in which you eat. Because if you eat too low calories, your metabolism follows it.
Right.
So, it's a balancing act. So again, the fasting group had a decreased levels of fasting insulin also, which is huge. I'm just reading this here, and decreased levels of triglycerides. So there's
That's huge.
no negative to the
Mm-mm.
intermittent fasting, only upside, only positive. The
The
only
only
negative
negative,
will be the
good.
only negative, we're probably gonna say the same thing. In the beginning, is you're gonna feel like, oh, my blood sugar's dropping, I'm hungry. By the way, if you have blood sugar issues, you have insulin issues.
Yeah.
If you get to where you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm gonna pass out, I feel, daisy, I feel like I get angry. That's exactly why you should learn to intermittent
Mm-hmm.
fast. And the
Mm-hmm.
best way to do it is take your normal time frame and say, you know what, I'm just gonna add 30 minutes tomorrow, longer. And that's all you do. So it's like turning the pot, the dial up on the pot where the frog's sitting in it, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't even know eventually it boils itself. But if you just jump in right away, it's really hard. It's like a cold plunge. It's hard, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to do that. You want to be in the pot, slowly turn it up. So what I mean by that is, let's say you stop eating at 8, you start eating at 8. Well, now the next day, don't eat till 8:30 or don't eat till 9, and then 9:30 and then 10. Before you know it, you're at 16 hours and it's like it becomes second nature to you.
Right. Right. It really does. And like I said, for women, it's different because Rye acclimated, and we're gonna wrap this up and I have some announcements. Acclimated fairly quickly,
Mm-hmm.
because like he shared with you earlier on, like he was that person had to eat every few hours because his body was trained that way, right? And now it's trained to not eat every couple hours. But he acclimated quickly to the fasting of 16 hours. For me, it would probably, I felt like it was like 2 weeks to where I finally, like 16 hours wasn't a struggle. Now it's like, I'll go 20 hours. I'm like, oh gosh, it's been 20 hours. I need to eat something. Right.
Is
And
it, the
it's,
key is staying busy.
yeah, it's when I'm busy. And that's the thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like when I'm working and doing stuff, getting running errands and everything, so easy not to focus on food. Last question is Tracy asked about apple cider vinegar. You do about a tablespoon. You don't need to do a ton. I personally drink it cold. I add the Celtic salt. Rye likes it hot. And the reason I do it cold because I drink it through my straw just to protect my teeth because I have sensitive teeth. So you might want to think about that. When it's hot, you can't drink. Well, I can't drink it through the metal straw that I have. It would
And I
burn.
just want to add one thing. The reason I believe, and besides the hormonal reason, right, in the from male to female, why it's easier for me to transition, um, understand a lot of it is a mental game.
Hmm.
It's just like a cold plunge. It's physical too, but it's really mental. It's based on your breathing. The
Hmm.
same thing with intermittent fasting. For me, the reason it was so hard to think about intermittent fasting before I understood the science and what it did for the body was I was trained to believe that when you don't eat for a period of time, your body will use muscle for fuel. And in a sense, that could be true, but the way we do it, it's not. So therefore, once I knew that not only was I not harming my body, but I knew in my psyche that I was actually doing something good for my body as opposed to what I thought,
Yeah.
very, very easy for me because you can trick again, whatever you think about comes about, right? You can think
Mm-hmm.
yourself into something. You can think yourself into worry. You can think yourself into happiness. So if you think about it, because everything starts and finishes here,
Mm-hmm.
then it's way easier to say, well, wait a minute, I'm losing fat right now. I'm gaining muscle right now, and I'm doing something incredible for my body. It's so much easier to learn how to intermittent fast that way.
100%, 100%. And then it's like when you start seeing the benefits, not just outside physical, but more the mental part of it, it just gets
The
easier.
clarity.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
clarity, it's through the roof. But Ryan, thanks. Just a couple updates, but I want to thank you for taking time on Saturday to do this monthly live virtual clinic. Just a reminder, ladies, every month we do a live virtual clinic. So put it in your calendar. You register for the links, right, to come get access. You can submit questions. What are your questions? What topic do you want us to cover? We go by the hottest thing at that time to have conversations, but the whole purpose is to answer your questions, making sure that you're getting the most out of the Hormone Reset Club, and this is the live virtual clinic. So that's one thing. Check your emails. Regular emails are going out. Check your junk, things like that. Make sure that you put us on Lydia Martinez Ebling uh, on the approved list as far as receiving emails. And then next Saturday, we're having our hormone macro code masterclass. Ryan is our host with me, and then we have special guests, the Alicia Corey and Shondell Solomon. It is a full day, and you, as a being part of the Hormone Reset Club, get a free VIP ticket. So what do you need to do to get that free VIP ticket? You need to go to hormonemacrocode.com. And why do you want to be a VIP? Because it's backstage. You get to be part of the bonus sessions that we only do for the VIPs. One's Saturday morning at 9 a.m. The general session starts at 10. And then on Sunday, we do a bonus session where Ryan and I will be talking about bioidentical hormone replacement. We're going to be talking about peptides, all things there, answering questions. So if you want to be a part of that, go to hormonemacrocode.com, register. Don't click off because it's going to take you to the next page. You're going to want to upgrade to the VIP Backstage Pass experience, and you want to put in free VIP, and that will give you a free ticket. If you don't do that, then you don't get the links and you don't get the emails. Okay, so one more time, hormonemacrocode.com. Register, takes you to the second page, upgrade to the VIP Backstage Pass, and use code free VIP. It's next Saturday and Sunday, okay? Last thing, we have some really cool things that are going to be coming out, so keep your eyes open. We have a recipe club that will release like what we're doing, like 15, 20 recipes a month, right? Is that what we're doing?
Yep.
As Hormone Reset Club members, you get special discount pricing on the club membership, and it's crazy inexpensive, but it's going to be, getting gluten-free, getting dairy-free, getting high protein recipes. We put it all together, and every month there's new ones that that come out each month, and we did it based around also the season. So like what you're going to get type of recipes based on what produce and stuff is available at that time of the year. So it's really cool. It's been a couple years that we've been working on putting this together. And then we have some other really cool things that are happening where we're going to have basically like a hormone peptide club. And we'll talk more about that to where you can get discounted. You can get blood work done. You can work with our health professional and get peptides that you can't get anywhere else, and bioidentical hormone replacement, all at an affordable pricing. Because I know a lot of women they struggle with, Ryan and I know struggle with getting that. And we've been able to get access and go all across the United States. So really cool just stay tuned on that. We'll give you more updates on that when it is ready. Rye, again, thanks so much for being here. Ladies, you are worthy, you are qualified, you are amazing. So go out and do amazing things, and I'll see you on the inside. Oh, last thing I forgot. Crap. Make sure that you're in our WhatsApp community. That's where you'll submit questions. That's where you get answers to questions and talk to the other women. All right. Have an amazing day. Love you guys. See you on the inside. Thanks, guys.